I just converted our Getting It Done with ADHD book. I converted it using Google's Notebook LM, and the results are pretty amazing. Dr. Claire and I listened to it, and we're pretty impressed with it. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to attach it at the end of this little intro here, and I hope you enjoy it. It's got everything in there. It's got the chapters, it's got even the worksheets, and all kinds of different ideas from Dr. Claire and I in there. And it doesn't have as much as what the book has, and you can get the book on Amazon, either Canada version or the American version. And the book's going to have Dr. Claire's tips and tricks and a few more details and all the worksheets and all that. But the audio version was really great. I was really impressed with it. So we just wanted to share that with you and add that here. And I just hope that you have a good holiday season. I know that the holiday season can be stressful sometimes, and man, there are a lot of tasks to do over holidays. And so we totally understand that, that sense of overwhelm and feeling like there's just so many distractions with Christmas and all that. But I do hope you get to enjoy it, and lots of lights out there, lots of pretty things, and hopefully you get to enjoy that as well. Anyways, we'll talk to you soon, and here's the audio version of this sort of podcast of two people talking about our book. It's pretty great.
All right, let's dive deep into this GID system from Dr. Claire for managing ADHD. Even if you haven't read Getting It Done with ADHD, we'll break it down today. Plus, we've got two people who actually live with ADHD. They'll be sharing their experiences a bit later. But first, that feeling of overwhelm, like a million tabs open in your brain all at once. Know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's a classic ADHD struggle. Dr. Claire calls her system GID, that's GIID. It all starts by recognizing that overwhelm and figuring out where your time and energy are actually going.
Okay, so how do you actually do that?
She uses something called the productivity chart. It's not about judging yourself, more about just understanding.
So like a detective, snooping around your day to see what's really going on.
Exactly. So there are 4 boxes on this chart: necessary work, purposeful work, unnecessary work, and distractions. So you've got those daily tasks like paying bills, or for Dr. Claire, those insurance reports. Essential, but not exactly exciting. That's the necessary work.
They got to do it even if you don't want to stuff.
Right. Then you have purposeful work, the stuff that lights you up, aligns with your values, gives you energy. For Dr. Claire, that's coaching, assessments, and believe it or not, even some types of clinical reports.
Wow, so it really is different for everyone, not just about what sounds fun in theory.
Exactly. But then there's that sneaky stuff disguised as work. But it's actually a time waster. Dr. Claire calls this unnecessary work. It's not like Netflix binging. It's more subtle, like perfectionism loops or endless research, when you already know enough to start.
Oh, the procrastination in disguise.
Yeah.
Feels productive, but it's just delaying the real work. And of course, we can't forget those distractions. Social media, texting, all that attention-grabbing stuff.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'm overwhelmed, distracted, procrastinating. What now?
Right, where do we go from here?
Dr. Claire brings in the weekly boss list. It's like a personal assistant for your brain, helping you prioritize and say no to overcommitting. It's different from that never-ending to-do list. It's focused on what you can realistically achieve in 1 week.
So setting realistic expectations, breaking things down.
Exactly. You start by just dumping everything out of your head. Then you pick the 3 to 5 most important tasks for the week, your non-negotiables, your priorities, not just what everyone else expects of you.
Which is so easy to get caught up in, especially with ADHD.
Totally. Dr. Claire also suggests a secondary list, another 3 to 5 tasks that would be nice to do but aren't critical. And here's a tip. If a task sits on that secondary list for weeks, maybe it's not that important after all. Maybe delegate it or even let it go entirely.
Freedom. Now, we have these prioritized tasks, but how do we actually get them done?
That's where time blocking comes in. Dr. Claire's all about creating a visual schedule. It helps you stay anchored, reduces that everything happening at once feeling, which I think is pretty common with ADHD.
Like a roadmap for your day so you don't get lost.
Exactly. Dr. Claire says to start with those immovable tasks first. Meetings, appointments, those kinds of things. Then slot in the urgent tasks from your weekly boss list.
But doesn't scheduling every minute feel kind of rigid? Especially for a brain that loves spontaneity.
It's not about being rigid. It's about knowing your energy flow, working with it, not against it. Dr. Claire even suggests scheduling time for diffuse mode moments.
Diffuse mode? What's that?
It's like your brain's background processing when you're not actively focused, but your subconscious is still working, making connections, sparking ideas. That's why those eureka moments often happen in the shower or on a walk.
So time blocking isn't just about work, it's also about breaks, downtime.
Exactly. Dr. Claire suggests overestimating the time you think you'll need, scheduling important stuff earlier in the day when you have more focus, even planning for potential distractions. It's about being realistic and setting yourself up for success.
This is making a lot of sense. We have the productivity chart for understanding our time, the weekly boss list to prioritize, and time blocking to structure our day. Feels like a solid foundation for managing ADHD.
It is. But even with all that planning and prioritizing, there's one thing that can still throw us off track: distractions. And that's what we'll tackle next. Distractions. That feeling of 100 tabs open in your brain. That's the reality for a lot of us with ADHD.
Oh, tell me about it. Distractions are the worst. But Dr. Claire says we make some mistakes when we deal with them. What are we doing wrong?
Well, first, we tend to blame willpower. Like, if we just had more willpower, we could resist.
Yeah, it's easy to think that, like you should just be able to power through it.
But Dr. Claire says willpower isn't the real issue. It's about understanding how attention works, especially with ADHD. She uses this analogy of a stage and a spotlight. Imagine the task you're trying to focus on is the actor under the spotlight.
Okay, got it.
But then, other actors' distractions start crowding the stage, all vying for that spotlight.
So our attention is constantly pulled in different directions.
Yeah, exactly. Those distractions are lurking in the wings. Your phone, notifications, worries, unfinished tasks, that catchy song, all waiting to jump into the spotlight. And even if you manage to refocus, it takes so much effort to drag that spotlight back.
No wonder we feel exhausted by the end of the day.
And Dr. Claire points out, sometimes we don't even realize we're distracted until someone else points it out.
So instead of beating ourselves up about it, what can we do?
Dr. Claire's approach is about managing your environment, minimizing those attention-grabbing things. She recommends some pretty bold moves, like turning off all notifications, even putting your phone in another room when you're working.
Wow, that's tough. But I can see how it would help.
It's about creating those controls to protect your attention. Not easy, but it can make a big difference.
And she also talks about a control worksheet, right?
Yes, it helps you identify distractions you can and can't control. For example, social media. Maybe you log out during work hours.
So you're being proactive.
Right, but what about those distractions outside our control, like unexpected phone calls?
Ugh, those always throw me off.
Dr. Claire says even then, we might have more control than we realize. She gives the example of pain. You can't always control the sensation of pain, but you can control how much attention you give it, how you talk to yourself about it.
It's interesting, like even when things feel out of control, we still have some agency.
Exactly, and that sense of agency is so important for managing ADHD. So we're starting to understand those external distractions. But what about the internal ones? Those thoughts and feelings that pull us away?
You mean like procrastination? That's definitely an internal battle.
Exactly, and Dr. Claire's approach is pretty refreshing. It's not about shame or forcing yourself to just do it. It's about understanding why we procrastinate.
So why do we, especially with ADHD?
Well, Dr. Claire says it's often rooted in fear, perfectionism, feeling overwhelmed by the task. Sometimes it's even about seeking that adrenaline rush, working under pressure, that last-minute scramble.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. Like I need the pressure to get my brain going.
But it's not sustainable, and that's why understanding the why is key. Dr. Claire has this tool called the Procrastination Decoded Worksheet.
How does that work?
You list the pros and cons of delaying a specific task. For example, on the pros side, I get temporary relief by avoiding it, or I kind of enjoy the adrenaline rush. But then on the cons side, I feel stressed about the deadline, or I risk delivering subpar work because I'm rushed. By listing them out, you see those hidden costs of procrastination.
Like you're facing the reality of your own behavior.
Exactly, and the key is there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about your personal triggers, developing strategies for your challenges.
So if deadlines motivate you, maybe you build in mini deadlines.
Exactly, or if perfectionism bogs you down, maybe break the task into smaller steps. Celebrate those small wins.
So it's about shifting your mindset from, I have to do this perfectly, to, I'm going to make progress.
Exactly, and speaking of progress, let's talk about prioritizing tasks. Because with ADHD, everything can feel important and urgent.
Oh yeah, constantly juggling priorities. Hard to know where to even begin.
That's where Dr. Claire's ABC system comes in. It's simple but effective, categorizing tasks based on importance and urgency.
Okay, break it down. What are A, B, and C tasks?
A tasks are mission-critical, must-do-now items, like a report with a looming deadline. B tasks are important but can wait a bit. C tasks are lower priority, can be done later, or even delegated.
like a triage system for your to-do list.
Exactly. But Dr. Claire adds another layer. She says to ask yourself, whose standard are you trying to meet?
You mean, are we doing something because it's truly important to us or because we feel like we should?
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your values, reclaiming your time and energy for what truly matters to you.
I'm seeing how all these pieces fit together. It's not just tools and techniques, it's about understanding ourselves.
And that self-awareness is crucial for managing ADHD. It's not about fixing yourself, it's about understanding your strengths and challenges.
This is also helpful, but actually implementing these strategies, that's the real challenge.
Mhm.
I think hearing from people living with ADHD using these tools, that could be really valuable.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm excited for our next segment. We have two amazing individuals joining us. They're going to share their experiences with GID and how it's helped them navigate ADHD.
Welcome back. So glad to have you with us for this next part. We've got two amazing guests today, Alex and Riley, both adults living and thriving with ADHD. Alex, Riley, thanks so much for joining us.
Wonderful to have you both here. Your perspectives are so valuable, especially for those just starting to explore GID.
Absolutely so, Alex. You've been using GAD for a few months now. What's been the biggest game changer? What really clicked for you?
I'd have to say the idea of mental sprints. I used to think I had to just sit and power through a task until it was done, which, let's be real, almost never happened. My brain just doesn't work that way. But with Dr. Claire's system, I realized it's okay to work in those shorter bursts focused. And surprisingly, I actually get more done that way.
Makes sense. Working with your brain, not against it. Riley, what about you? Biggest aha moment in managing ADHD?
You know, for me, it was time blocking. I always resisted scheduling, felt too rigid. But then it hit me, it actually gives me more freedom. By planning my day, I'm less likely to get sidetracked or feel overwhelmed by all the things I need to do.
That's such a key point, Riley. Time blocking isn't about restricting yourself. It's about creating that structure that supports your natural flow.
It's like building a scaffolding for your brain. So if you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting out with GID, what would it be, Alex?
Start small, definitely. Don't try to do everything at once. It's overwhelming. Maybe pick one tool like the weekly boss list or time blocking. Try it for a week, see how it feels, adjust if you need to, then gradually add more tools as you get comfortable.
Such good advice, Alex. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate those small wins.
Riley, any words of wisdom to share?
Find an accountability partner for sure. Having someone to check in with who gets it, it makes a huge difference, like a cheerleader in your corner.
Yeah, that power of community and support. So important to have people who understand your journey.
This has been so inspiring. Thank you both, Alex and Riley, for sharing your stories and insights.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into GID, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. Remember, awareness is key. Understanding where your time and energy go. That's the first step to making positive changes.
And that's where that productivity chart can be so helpful. Not about judgment, it's about information.
Exactly. And once you have that information, you can start experimenting with tools like the weekly boss list, time blocking. It's not just about productivity, it's about creating a life that feels manageable and fulfilling.
And remember, managing ADHD is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but you don't have to go it alone.
Such an important reminder. So our challenge to you is this. Pick one thing from GID that resonated with you today. Try it out this week. Be patient. Celebrate your progress. Remember, even small changes can make a big impact. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.